Hey everybody, today I'm going to be showing you how to start this awesome macaw drawing. We're going to be trying to work realistically and we'll be doing all of the colors in oil pastel. But to start our drawing, you are only going to need a sheet of this brown paper and a white colored pencil. These are really nice to work with because they will erase if you mess up. We're also going to be using our reference photo here as we're drawing, just so we can kind of see the shapes as we go. Make sure that your paper is turned the tall way, otherwise measurements won't make any sense, and your macaw won't fill your space. So we're going to be starting about 2 fingers from the top edge of our paper. So I'm just going to take my 2 fingers here, and I want to be towards the center of the paper. I don't want to be over to the left or the right. So I want to try to be close to the center, about 2 fingers down, and I'm just going to put a little mark there so that I know approximately where the top of my macaw's head is going to be. And we're going to be making a circle for his head. To make a measurement for our head size, you want it to be approximately big enough so that your hand can fit inside of it. With your fingers just spread a little bit apart. Not super big apart, not super close together, but you want it to be just kind of open and about that size. So I'm going to draw a circle right here towards the center of my paper. And you'll see as I start to draw, I kind of sketch it out really lightly first. And then when I get it to about the right size, then I'll darken that line in. And you can see how it's right about the same size as my hand. And my fingertips are kind of touching that. So now that I've got that in there, I'm gonna just kind of darken that up a little bit. Remember, we always wanna draw lightly until we get it exactly how we want it. This is really nice. Again, it will erase if you're drawing lightly. All right, so there's the shape of my head. Our next part that we're gonna be adding to it is the beak. If we look at our reference photo, this circle that we just made also includes the beak, or the bottom of the beak. So when I draw the beak, I'm actually going to overlap it onto the side of his head. So I'm going to actually kind of draw the back part of the beak first, kind of overlapping his head, and then I'm going to bring the front of it out away from the head and down. And his beak really comes almost straight down. It's not going to go out to the side. It's going to come out and then go almost straight down. So you can see it coming down here. And then as it comes back into his head, we're going to want to kind of start with this triangle shape and then kind of flatten it out as it goes in towards his face. So once I hit that circle line, I kind of flattened it out. But his beak is pretty pointy at the end, so make sure you get a really nice point, and I have to erase some of that. At the end of it, they have a really sharp beak. It's how they open up all of the nuts that they eat. All right, and you can actually see how by making that line overlap, the bottom beak is almost completely drawn for us already. I just need to make it a little bit wider to connect back to his head. All right, we've got some lines in here that we can go ahead and erase. This line here doesn't exist anymore. It was just a guideline. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that line from in there, and then right in here, there's also a line that we can erase. All right, now we do need to work a little bit on the top of his head. If you look right at the top of his beak here, his head does not go or curve straight back from his beak like what we have. It actually comes in and kind of puffs out away from there. So starting right on his beak here, I'm going to bring just a little bit more of those feathers out from his head. We're going to give him just a little bit more of a forehead here. We started with a really basic shape of a circle, and now we're kind of adjusting it as we go. And again, now that we've got this new line and we're happy with the shape, I'm not quite happy with the shape yet. Let me adjust that. Oh, there we go. And you can see I had to make several lines before I got it right. Now that I'm happy with it, I'm going to erase those extra ones. And don't worry if some of your lines show even after you erase them. When we put that oil pastel on top of here, none of those lines are going to show. All right, let's start working on this kind of back side of his body and then into his wing. So his head comes back and kind of slants out and away for the back of his neck. So starting right here at the top of his head, we're going to bring it down and slant it out. And then that runs right into the top of his wing here. So starting right about here, I'm going to make that kind of shoulder and top of his wing. And this is actually just going to come almost straight down until I hit the bottom edge of my paper. On this side, it's going to kind of come out until I hit the edge of my paper there as well. All right, let me check the shape here. It has just a tiny bit of a curve in the back of his neck, so I'm going to go ahead and make that line curve just a little more and then curve out to his wing. Don't be afraid to change things and adjust them if they don't quite look right. It's really part of drawing realistically is really studying your picture and trying to see all of those different parts. Now at the front of his face, we can see that it's almost like his chin right here underneath his beak. It actually comes out from about halfway on the bottom part of his beak. So if we look at this bottom part of his beak, we can see about halfway is where it's going to start. So right here, about halfway on his beak is where that's going to start. And it kind of curves in towards his body, so it has a little bit of a curve right here. And then it's hard to see because this is his body. I'm going to draw it actually on my photograph here. It kind of curves, and then the front of his body comes down like this. This part here is actually the other wing, so we're not going to work on that yet. We're going to get that body in there first. So you can see we have a small curve, and then we have a bigger curve for his chest, and then kind of straight down. So depending on how much space you have left down here will determine how much of this you're going to draw. But I have that small curve, and then that bigger curve for his chest, and I'm actually just going to run right into the bottom of my paper. And then we're looking at that other wing, and that other wing starts right where those two curves come together. So starting right about here, I'm going to bring that other wing out. And this kind of has the red part here and then that other wing that comes out. So I'm going to just bring that out. I'm actually just going to draw one of those little feathers coming out and then the rest going down to the bottom of the page. And I'm looking at this and I'm not loving this angle over here, so I am going to take my eraser and just clean that up a little bit. Remember, don't be afraid to make adjustments as you go. All right, I've got the main shapes of his body. You'll notice we didn't draw anything kind of below halfway. That's not what we have, or that's all we have room for on our paper, and that's okay. All right, let's jump back up to his head and work on that a little bit. There's a really distinct part here where his eye is separate or looks separate from the rest of his face. These are still feathers, they're just white. So we're going to draw this kind of shape around here and then we'll work on the eye a little bit. So if we look at it, we can see it starts where the two beaks kind of come together, maybe just a little bit higher than that. And it just kind of comes up, kind of angled, has a little bit of a round curve around the eye. And then it comes all the way back down to connect with the bottom of his beak. So we're going to bring that back down and make that connection down there. Now that I have that on there, what I'm noticing is that there's a lot more space behind that eye than what I initially drew. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just add a little bit more up here to the top of his head. So even as I'm drawing this, I'm kind of realizing that I have to make some changes. And again, I don't need this line anymore. So So we're starting to see that. All right, looking really closely at his eye, what you're gonna see is it's mostly a circle, but if you look really closely, you're gonna see just a little bit of a point on the back side and on the front side. So for his eye, I'm gonna start by just drawing a nice size circle. Remember, it fits inside that curve that we saw here. I'm gonna start by drawing that circle, and then I'm just gonna kind of add a little bit of a point at each corner. Now we're not adding any color today, but we do wanna show the different areas. So I'm gonna go ahead and put another circle in there for his pupil. And then the last thing, if you look very closely in his eye, there's a tiny little reflection. So I'm gonna actually draw that with my white colored pencil. And it just looks like a little bit of a triangle shape. And for that one, you can actually color it in with that white colored pencil. That's gonna help out later on. All right. This is basic shape and form of the bird that we're gonna be making. Now, tomorrow, we're gonna be talking about how to choose which macaw you wanna color in. There are 8 different types of macaws, and the sub will be showing you that video. So you're gonna get to choose which macaw you wanna color. And every macaw looks the same in its build, and then it's very different in the way that the colors are. All right, make sure you are happy with your drawing. If there's anything you need to adjust, like maybe here I'm gonna change that beak shape just a little bit, make those adjustments today, and then tomorrow we'll start talking about adding color. All right, friends, I will see you tomorrow. Good luck on your drawings.